to this idea that the military is doing whatever it can to keep civilians in Gaza safe, or that it is using its technology to not harm civilians in Gaza, is false. It's not true. And I know this not only from looking at the catastrophic killing of so many civilians in Gaza, but also by speaking to intelligence sources who have told me that now all of the previous restrictions that were already permissive into harming civilians have been dramatically loosened. For example, one source spoke about how you get sort of this approximation of where a target is, and it's not pinpointed. And yet soldiers will still strike it, knowingly killing families and civilians to save time in getting a more accurate pinpointing of the target. It's very important that people understand that, and this is according to 5 sources that I've spoken with in Israeli intelligence, in all of the target fires that Israel is bombing right now, the amount of civilians that are likely to be killed is written down. So again, it's not a mistake, as you've quoted in the beginning of the piece, in the beginning of the narration, Amy. When a child is killed in Gaza, it's because somebody made a decision that this killing was worth it to hit another target. And there are internal regulations that the army has created that regulate this. And so it's very clear to me that after October 7th, there is a total disregard for Palestinian civilian life, even when hitting targets that are either not distinctly military in nature. The third and final thing, and this goes back to the idea of a mass assassination factory, is that there is a systematic policy, according to sources, of targeting private residential homes of Hamas or jihadi operatives when they are in these private homes, when they are in these buildings or private residencies. And just so you understand, I mean, what this means is that the military is knowingly dropping a bomb that weighs a ton or often more on a residential building in order to assassinate one person, knowingly killing that person's family and neighbors in the process, when according to sources, in the vast majority of cases, these buildings are not places where there is military activity that is being conducted. It is an assassination against somebody who is in Hamas or Jihad's military brigades, but they are not in a military place. One source who was particularly critical of this policy said that he thought it was like if Israel would bomb, if a Palestinian militant group would bomb the homes of Israelis, not when they are wearing their army uniform, but when they are going back home in the weekend, and essentially assassinating them through the bodies of their families or their neighbors, and then saying that they use those families as human shields. Now, I think that we've talked about these power targets and we've talked about these assassination targets, and of course, there are many different types of targets that could be considered under international law more legitimate. For example, militant cells, for example, ammo warehouses, for example, rocket launcher pits. And I think that to look at the civilian devastation that is happening right now in Gaza, you have to understand that it's a consequence of a particular Israeli war policy. It is a war policy that has a very loose interpretation of what a military target is, also attacking people in civilian spaces. It is a war policy that centers on deterrence and hitting these power targets that are intended to place civilian pressure on Hamas. And it is a war policy that is increasingly being helped by the use of big data, automation software, and AI. And again, I don't know everything. I've only spoken to several sources, but my evidence suggests that many of the civilians who are being killed in Gaza are being killed as a result of these policies that I do not think are justifiable policies. International law experts would call them war crimes, and that's why I don't think that what Blinken is saying is true, honestly.